Have you ever tried to create a budget but struggled to stick to it? Well, in today's video, I'm going to show you how to create the perfect budget, or as I call it, a wealth action plan that you're going to want to stick to. So keep watching. Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel, the best place to be wherever you are on your wealth journey right now. In today's video, I'm going to show you my budgeting spreadsheet, but before that, I just wanted to explain that if you are one of the people that has struggled with a budget before, don't worry. I was in exactly the same position as you back in 2012, because back then I had £125,000 worth of bad debt and I didn't know what to do. I was really worried and I absolutely hated budgeting. And I hated budgeting for three main reasons. The first reason was because to me, it was like a strict parent looking over my shoulder the whole time. I would go to the shops, I would look in a nice big shop window and my eye would be drawn to these absolutely amazing sparkly shoes. And I would see these guys and I'd think, oh my goodness, they're absolutely amazing. Look how sparkly they are. And they're going to go really well with that Christmas dress that I'm buying and, you know, all of this. And suddenly I would feel this have this voice in my ear from my budget saying, I see what you're doing. You're looking at those sparkly shoes. Do you think that's a good idea? Do you think you can afford those? I don't think you can. And it would make me feel very guilty to even be looking at the shoes, let alone thinking about buying them. So I ended up not ending up with my sparkly shoes. Obviously today things have changed and I've now got my sparkly shoes, so I'm happy with those. I'm going to pop them over here for now. Now, the second reason that I absolutely hated budgeting was because I'd managed to get myself in a real financial mess and I didn't want to take responsibility for that. And because I was in such a mess, I was terrified of money. And actually money phobia, it's called chromatophobia, is a real thing. People can be scared of money. And according to the statistics, 1 in 5 people in the UK have chromatophobia. And because I was so scared, I was terrified to open my post because I knew that there were lots of bills and invoices coming in and I didn't even want to look at that. I certainly wasn't interested in looking at any of my bank accounts, and so budgeting for me was just a big fat no-no because it meant that I would have to actually look at it and actually embrace what I'd spent and take responsibility. And at that time I really didn't want to take responsibility for anything. So if you've ever been scared with money, or you're fearful about it, or you feel that you've got money phobia, don't worry, okay, there's lots of other people out there, myself included. So I was really scared. And actually what I found out further down my wealth journey is that actually owning it and taking responsibility makes you feel much better about yourself and your finances, and makes you feel more empowered as well. Now, the third reason I absolutely hated having a budget was because it was called a budget. And that sounded so dull to me. You know, budgeting seemed like the sort of thing that politicians would do, and dull people. And I certainly didn't feel like a dull person. So I thought, why should I get involved with budgeting? But actually, what's in a name? You know, so nowadays I don't call it a budget anymore. I call it my wealth action plan, because that's what actually got me to where I am today. Now, there are 3 really good reasons to create a budget, and I did touch upon these in my last video, which was 5 things that can make you wealthy, which is this video just up here. So if you haven't seen that one yet, click on this link up here and it will take you to that video. You might want to open it in a new window. But the 3 main reasons that you want to be creating a budget is, first of all, because your budget is your roadmap to your wealth. Okay, you need to know exactly where you're starting today in order to get to where you want to go tomorrow. The second really good reason that you want to create a budget is because it can help you to set goals. So whatever your goal is, whether it's to buy a house or have a wedding or create an investment or something like that, you know, you can actually use your budget as a tool to get you to there as well. So very helpful for goal setting. The third reason it's a really good idea to create a budget is because it helps you to plan for emergencies. We never know what's around the corner or what's going to happen to us. So if our roof falls in or something happens, you know, we need to deal with that when the time comes. And if we have no money in our bank account to be able to do stuff like that, then we're going to be struggling. So actually your budget will help you to plan for that rainy day, for the bad thing that happens, whatever it might be. Now, the last thing I'm going to say before we dive into our budget spreadsheet is this. Budgets only work if you have 2 things, and you need to have these 2 things. The first thing that you need to have is the ability to take action, because budgets do not work if you don't look at them. So I take positive action every month at an absolute minimum. When I was going through my debt reduction, I was looking at my budget every single day. Slowly but surely over time it became once a week, and nowadays I normally look at it about once a month, if not once every other week. So it's something that's going to be with you long term. Now, the second thing you need to get your budget to work for you is to get your partner on board with you. Now, that might seem a bit crazy, it might seem a little bit difficult, but if you've got a partner, I strongly recommend that you talk to them about budgeting and try to get them to go along with this, okay? Because it's very difficult to keep a budget if your partner is off spending willy-nilly everywhere else. So you need to get them on board with you, and together, you know, you can work through it, and it should strengthen your relationship. It certainly strengthened my relationship with my husband. Your partner always needs to help, not hinder your budgeting process. So let's dive in then and actually have a look at a budgeting spreadsheet. I've got mine here, I'll grab my laptop. Okay, so this is my budget spreadsheet. Now, one thing I will say about spreadsheets is that there is a spectrum of people. You have people at one end of the spectrum who absolutely hate spreadsheets and can't stand it and would rather move to Mars than look at a spreadsheet. On the other end of the spectrum, you've got people that absolutely love spreadsheets and would happily sleep with them under their pillow every single night. If you are on the other end where you would rather move to Mars, then don't worry, there are other things that you can do. You know, you could create a nice book if you wanted to, rather than look at a spreadsheet. You can write everything down by hand if you wanted to. So lots of other options for budgeting. For the purposes of now, I'm going to concentrate on this particular spreadsheet, and if you like it, it is available on my website, so oliviafenion.com. Go and have a look. You can download it for free. I'm not going to charge you anything for this, and this is the exact spreadsheet that I used to get me out of the debt, and this is the same spreadsheet that I use today. So I've got a blank one here because I want to share it with you guys, but have a look. So let's pop on and see. So, first of all, one thing I will say is that I've created this spreadsheet in pound sterling, but it might be that we're not in the UK, so it might be that you want to transfer it to dollars or something like that. So what we do is we go to the top left-hand corner here, and there's a little white triangle, and we click the triangle and it turns the whole screen so that it's selected. I then move my mouse over to just underneath here where it says accounting. There's a little picture of some money, and I press the tab there and I change it to whichever currency I'd like. So let's say I'm in the States, I'd change it to dollars, and there we go, the whole spreadsheet is now changed for you. So I'm going to change that back to pounds for the moment because we're in the UK. So let's have a look at it in pounds. Now, I've started this spreadsheet as well with January at the front here, but it might well be that you're not starting your spreadsheet until the middle of the year, because we don't always start a spreadsheet in January. That would be a bit silly, really, especially if we've suddenly decided to take life by the horns and go for it. You know, we want to start, the ideal starting point is the beginning of the month. So ideally start on the first of the month if you can, but obviously if not, then don't worry. There are things you can do, and I'll go through it. So I'm not going to start in January. Let's imagine I want to start in May. Now, I've created this so that the left-hand column is completely frozen, so we can just move along until we reach May. There it is. And what I want to do then is to put my income in at the top. So for argument's sake, let's just say that I earn £2,000 and my husband earns £2,000. Now, I've put some other income columns in here as well. So I've got income 3, 4, 5 and 6, because it might be that you have a side hustle somewhere. It might be that you work a couple of part-time jobs. It might be that you've got other investment income or anything like that. So you can put all the incomes in here and come out with a total income figure at the bottom. After that, we've got a projected budget summary and an actual budget summary. Now, we can see that our income has already started populating both of those fields, so we're just going to ignore these for now because these will automatically fill in as we're filling out the rest of the spreadsheet. After our actual budget summary, we've got debts. Now, the reason that I've put debts at the top of our spreadsheet here is because, remember I said we want to own it. We want to take responsibility and own the debt that we have. And in order to do that, we need to be able to see it. It's no good putting the debt right at the bottom of the spreadsheet where it can't be seen and it can be ignored and you've got your head in the sand still. We want to put it right at the top so that it's front and centre, we can see it all the time. Because our debt, if we've got debt, is going to be our goal that we want to pay it off. So we're going to put that at the top. So put any debts that you've got in there. And after that, we've got our household expenses. So we've got mortgage, utility bills and so on. If we go a bit further down, we've got food and groceries. Then we've got insurance, media expenses, which I don't know about you guys, for me it's absolutely massive. Then we've got health, so gym memberships, contact lens subscriptions, vitamins and minerals, that kind of thing. Then we've got transport, so fuel costs and train fare and, you know, any taxi whatever knots that you pay. And then pets. Now I've got a fluffy dog, so he needs feeding and playing with and so on. So I'm going to be budgeting food and toys and things for him. Then I've got some miscellaneous bits in here. I've got a holiday and I've got an RI subscription. I've got a few other miscellaneous bits and pieces. And then at the very bottom, I've got my ISAs, my savings account and things like Christmas and so on. So you can see here that I think we've pretty much got all bases covered with regard to the budget. Now, one thing that I will say, and the reason that I find a lot of budgets actually fail, is because people don't put in the correct budget amount. So let's say, for example, I spend £283 on council tax, for argument's sake. Now, some people might say, oh, I spend about 250 quid on council tax, so I'm going to put 250 quid in there. But actually it's not 250, it's £283, and there's about 30 quid in there that you're not accounting for. The second thing they might say is, oh, well, you know, if my council tax is £283, I'm just going to put 300 in there. And actually you're now spending less than you think you have. So again, we've got a discrepancy there which needs to be looked at, because even though it's only about 17 quid, you know, that still mounts up, and over the year, you know, that's a meal out at Christmas at very least. So you want to be doing things really, really accurately. So you're going to need three things. The first thing that you're going to need is your last 3 months bank statements. So here are mine. Now, please excuse the black blobs. I've just blacked out the account numbers because I'm going to show you these in a bit more detail in a second. So get your last 3 months bank statements. Now you can look at them online. I've chosen to print mine out, and I would recommend printing them if you've got access to a printer, because that way you can write on them and things as well. So I'm going to look after those. The other thing I need is a ruler. I also need a pen. And the other thing I need is a calculator, and also, to go with my pen, something to write on as well. So I've got my pad there too. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my last 3 months bank statements. So the first thing I'm going to do is to get my bank statements here. And what have I got? February, March and April just here. And I'm going to go down the list with my ruler, and I'm going to have a look at what I've got coming in. My first direct debit that I have down here is my television licence, and I can see this, and it's £12.83. So then I want to go onto my second statement and have a look to see where that television licence falls. There it is, £12.83. Okay, happy days. Then I go to my third statement, have a look again at my television licence, and this time on the 1st of April it's only £11.50. So I can see here that I've got 2 lots of £12.83 and 1 lot of £11.50. So when I come over to my budget spreadsheet, I'm going to find the bit that says television licence, there it is, and in the budget column I'm going to put in the exact amount of TV licence that I pay. But because I've got a discrepancy here, I've got £12.83 or £11.50, I'm actually going to put in the higher amount. So whenever you're looking at your last 3 months bank statements, always put in the highest amount that you've paid over those 3 months, okay? So in this case, it's £12.83. So I'm going to keep an eye on that over the next coming months to see whether it stays at £11.50. And if it does stay at £11.50 for at least 2 consecutive months, I'm going to then reduce on the third month of my budget here, I'm going to then put £11.50 in my budget column rather than £12.83. But let's imagine that May comes and my outflow is only £11.50 again. I've actually got a balance in this end column of £1.33 because that's money that I've not spent on my television licence. So this balance column is the column that I'm always going to want to keep either at 0, which is the little dash, or in a positive. Now it is possible to have this in a negative, and that's not what you want when it comes to your balance, but all of this will populate itself up at the top in both our projected and our actual budget summaries. When you're budgeting, the first thing you want to do with the budget is to fill in the whole lot of the budget column. So in this case, I've got my £12.83 in my television licence. I then go back to my original sheet and I've got Virgin Money payment here, £1,313.61. So that's going to go up in my mortgage column here, £1,313.61. Okay, so that's my budget for my mortgage. Now I'm on a fixed rate mortgage, so that's not going to change anytime soon, so I'm happy to keep putting that in every month. Now for the moment, I would say just concentrate on populating the main budget column of your first month. So in this case, our first month is May, and all I'm going to be doing is filling in this budget column. Okay, so you can see here that I've now populated all the columns. So if we go down here, we can see that I've got things in all the budget columns and things in all the outflow columns. Now the budget column is the one that you want to do initially, and the outflow column is the one that you want to do as and when the money goes out of your bank account. So initially my budgeting is all here. My outflow, so once my loan goes out, for example, in this spreadsheet, it goes to nothing. Likewise, my second loan, £54.95, pay that, the balance goes to nothing. Now, further down here, I've got my mortgage and my rent, which are the normal, the same. So my balance is nothing because I've paid that out of my account. But I've also now got my council tax. Now, let's say, for example, this month I didn't have to pay council tax, because there are a couple of months in the year where you don't have to pay council tax. So let's say I've not paid anything there and my balance is £286.93. I then have my heating bill. Now, obviously, it's getting a little bit lighter outside and brighter. So I only paid £54, let's say, this month on my gas bill. So that means I've got £13.50 surplus. So this money go and pay off one of these loans or pay a little bit more towards it, which will pay it down faster. Now, one thing I will say here is that my holiday, let's imagine that I'm going to go on holiday next summer and it's going to cost me £1,500. Then what I do is I take my calculator, I do 1,500 divided by 12, which is £125 per month, and I put that in my budget column. And then what I'm going to do is to set up a separate savings account for my holiday. So it might be a bank account that I've already got somewhere that's not really got much money in it, and I can actually transfer the £125 from this account, which is the account that all my outgoings are going from, over to my savings account. And I know that the money will be there for my holiday in the future. Likewise, I've got a payment here to the RI. Now, if I go back over to my sheet here and I go down and have a look in February, we can see here that we've made a payment of £75 to the Royal Institution. But this is an annual subscription, so it's not something that comes out every single month. And this is why it's always a good idea to use your last 3 months' bank statements. But you've also got to have in the back of your mind things like this that go out once a year, so that you can budget for that in your spreadsheet as well. So in this case, it's £75. So again, I've got my calculator. £75 divided by 12 is £6.25. So I put £6.25 over here in my budget column, and every month I make sure that goes out into a separate savings account so that that's accounted for, and I can pay the money in full next February when it becomes due. So if you've got anything like that, you can put that all in your budget as well. So very, very helpful. Then we've got our savings down here at the bottom. Now, if we go back to the top here, we can see that we've got balances now. So I've got a total of £354.88 in my projected budget, which means that of my actual income of £4,000, by the time I've paid everything, I should have at least £354.88 left over in my pocket that I can use to do something else with. But actually, let's imagine that we've already done the whole of the month of May. My actual outflow for May is £3,283.27, which means that my balance is actually £716.73, which is quite a lot more than I'd originally anticipated. So I've got quite a bit more money now to play with, and I can decide what I want to do with this. I could put it as extra towards my holiday fund. I could pay off some of my debt with it. So it's incredibly useful to keep your budget spreadsheet like this. So this is the exact budget summary that I use on a day-to-day basis. It's incredibly useful. Every time I look at my bank statements, I'll make sure that all the outgoings are in that outflow column, and then I can see where I am with everything. So you can see from this spreadsheet how I'm able to plan my goals, plan my savings, and actually budget properly. And I'm taking ownership of any debts I might have as well. So it really, really is a brilliant, brilliant way of working. So I hope you found this budget useful, guys. You can download it from my website, oliviafenion.com. If you have any questions about it, please drop me some comments in the boxes underneath this video and I will respond to you. In the meantime, if you haven't seen my last video, this one over here, the 5 things that can make you wealthy, then you definitely want to be watching that one next up. Otherwise, stay tuned for the next video I have, which will be all about how to pay off debt, because I managed to pay off £125,000 worth of debt in just 4 years, and I'm going to share with you how exactly I did that. So stay tuned and I will see you next time. Thanks, guys.